Just off Interstate 80, near the small town of Walcott, Iowa, there is a fuel island that almost never goes quiet. 15 lanes, green pump handles worn smooth by a few million hands. Underneath the concrete, storage tanks that have held close to 1 million gallons at a time. This is the Iowa 80, the largest truck stop in the world, opened back in 1964 by a Standard Oil manager named Bill Moon, who looked at a stretch of empty cornfield and saw a fuel stop. On any given night, the diesel pumps here run while the rest of the country sleeps. You could stand at one of those pumps and ask the obvious question: how much fuel moves through a place like this? But that is not the interesting question. The interesting one is where all of it goes after the tanks run dry, and why a country this proud of its technology has quietly arranged itself so almost nobody ever has to think about the answer. What almost nobody standing at that pump considers is that the fuel in those tanks is holding up systems they will never see, in places they will never visit. So, how did one fuel become this essential and this invisible at the same time? The name on the pump is a good place to start. Diesel was a man, Rudolf Diesel, born in Paris in 1858, a German engineer who spent years chasing a single idea, an engine far more efficient than the steam and gasoline engines of his day. He patented it in 1892, a compression ignition engine, built to be stubborn and adaptable, able to run on peanut oil, vegetable oil, whatever fuel was on hand. He did not live to see what it became. In September 1913, Diesel boarded the steamship Dresden to cross the English Channel for a meeting in London. He had dinner, went to his cabin, and was never seen alive again. His coat was found folded on the deck rail. A body surfaced 10 days later. The death was ruled a suicide. His bank accounts nearly empty, but more than a century on the case has never been cleanly closed. What is not in dispute is the engine. By the time Diesel vanished, his design was already spreading into ships, factories, and power plants. The inventor disappeared. His machine did the exact opposite, and it never stopped. Follow the Diesel out of Walcott, and the first thing it runs is the road itself. Trucking moves roughly 73% of all domestic freight tonnage in the United States. In 2024, that came to more than 11 billion tons of cargo, hauled by something like 3.5 million professional drivers in close to 15 million registered trucks. Nearly every loaded trailer you pass on the interstate is moving because a diesel engine is turning, and the federal government collects about 24 cents in tax on every gallon that burns to make it happen. Strip the diesel out of that system and it does not slow down. It stops. The grocery shelf, the hospital supply room, the hardware store, all of them sit about 3 days of missed deliveries away from empty. We like to picture the economy as something digital. Most of it still arrives on 18 wheels, but the road was never the whole story. Long before a truck ever carries food, diesel grows it. Walk a working farm during harvest, and you are walking through a diesel operation. The tractor, the combine, the grain auger, the irrigation pump. A single large tractor can hold close to 200 gallons in one tank. Running a cornfield through a full season of tillage, planting, spraying, and harvest burns somewhere near 7.5 gallons of diesel for every acre. Multiply that across the tens of millions of acres in a few Midwest states, and the number stops being a fuel cost. It becomes the actual reason the food exists. Most of this fuel is dyed red and sold untaxed for off-road use. It is the same diesel as the truck stop, just legally invisible, which is a fitting description for the entire arrangement. Step back far enough, and a pattern shows up. Every layer of physical life in America has a diesel engine somewhere underneath it, doing the heavy work and staying out of sight. Take the long-haul layer. The country runs roughly 137,000 miles of freight rail, and a freight locomotive is one of the most efficient machines ever built. On average, a train moves a ton of cargo more than 470 miles on a single gallon of diesel. On the best-run networks, one major railroad reported its trains averaging more than 500 ton miles per gallon last year. For a machine that size, that is a genuinely absurd figure. One train can carry what it would take several hundred trucks to haul. Coal, grain, lumber, finished cars, the steel containers stacked off the ships. The heaviest, least glamorous freight in the country moves on diesel and steel wheels, and it has done so for a century. If you are the kind of person who likes seeing how the machinery underneath the country actually fits together, subscribe. This channel takes apart one hidden system at a time. Then there are the ports. Stand at a container terminal in Los Angeles or Savannah, and almost nothing electric is moving the cargo. The ship itself burns heavy marine fuel. The cargo handlers, the yard tractors, the short-haul drayage trucks that pull containers to the nearest rail yard, all of it is diesel. A pair of running shoes made overseas crosses an ocean, a dock, a rail network, and a final stretch of highway, and a diesel engine has a hand in nearly every leg of that journey. A construction site, anywhere in America. The excavator, the bulldozer, the crane, the loader, none of them plug into anything. They run on the same off-road diesel as the tractor, go underground, or out to an open pit, and the scale only grows. The haul trucks that move ore through a working mine are diesel, and they are among the largest vehicles ever made. It sounds like a side detail. It is not. Almost every road, bridge, pipeline, and building in the country was assembled by diesel-powered machines long before the first light switch was ever installed. And here is the part most people miss entirely. Diesel is not only what the country runs on, it is also what the country falls back on. Walk into the basement of almost any hospital and you will find diesel generators waiting in the dark. Under federal fire safety rules, when grid power fails, those generators have to bring the critical systems back within 10 seconds. Hospitals are expected to keep enough fuel on site to run for around 96 hours with no help from anyone. Test the generators monthly, swap the fuel before it goes stale because in a real outage, there is no second system underneath this one. Pay attention to this next part, because it closes the loop. The internet itself, the thing we are most certain has replaced the physical world, leans on the very same fuel. The data centers behind the apps and the cloud and the search results keep banks of diesel generators on standby for the moment the power dips. When a hurricane takes down the grid for a week, the lights that stay on, the servers that stay up, the fuel stations that can still pump, are running on diesel and a delivery truck. The backup plan for modern life turns out to be a tank of diesel and a road clear enough to refill it. Which brings it back to Walcott. That fuel island on Interstate 80 is not really a truck stop. It is a small, visible piece of a system that grows the food, hauls the freight, builds the roads, and waits in the basement for the grid to fail. Rudolph Diesel built an engine meant to be efficient and adaptable, and the country took him at his word, then built itself around the fuel and stopped looking at it. The engine that runs almost everything became the one almost nobody watches. So here is the question worth leaving in the comments. Where have you seen this dependency up close? A harvest that stalled because a fuel delivery ran late. A hospital running on its generators. A storm that made all of it obvious for a few days. Tell the story. The ones that stick are the ones that happen to you.